What do you look at when you're looking to work on your pitch shots?
I would say the key is to not have like huge divots. Say the better pitch players often have pretty shallow divots. Their interaction with the turf is usually pretty crisp. So yeah, if you have like sort of coin-sized divots, then you're usually a pretty good pitch player, I would say.
Do you try to manipulate your wedges at all when you come to, say, tournaments like this in Scotland where it's a little bit windier, or would you just rather change to the club you're
Yeah, I mean, like
for
a
that?
shot like that, depending on what the wind direction is doing, I'll sort of manipulate the trajectory a little bit. So, you know, if it's straight into the wind, I'll probably put it slightly back in the stance and maybe hit down on it a little bit more. You know, creating sort of like a more lower sort of flight.
Yep.
And then, you know, if it's downwind again, like sometimes, you know, if you get the ball too much in the air, you can also, you lose that spin. So trajectory is a big thing, I would say, when,
yep.
you know, hitting the wedges. Obviously, a lot of people don't really think about that stuff as much. They're like, well, it's 50, 60 yards kind of thing. But if you have good ball control, spin, and then, you know, your like divots are shallow, I would say you are much more likely to be able to control actually what the ball's doing. And in windy conditions like that, that's really important because, you know, a lot of people, they won't have full control over the golf ball, and, you know, you'll see that if the ball's either not releasing or is releasing too much.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We'll move you on to your 54. So what type of shots would you be looking to play here? When do you look to use this club more often than not?
So I'll use this when I've got about probably 90 yards or so.
Yep.
I'll also use it if if there's a Mackenzie green and, you know, there's not much room on the top to maybe land a full 60 degree, or I'm worried about it spinning back, or, you know, any sort of things like that.
Yep.
I will then look to use this club to kind of land it at the bottom of the Mackenzie and then kind of take one hop up to the back of the slope.
Yeah.
It just gives you a little bit more control and room to work with.
And is there any drills you look to when you're looking to kind of gauge your distance control? Is there a particular drill you look to? I know some people look at like a clock method. Are you more of a feel player?
I'm more of a feel player, but I have like my quad, which is like a TrackMan, you know, and it measures the distances. So I will set myself like a target of like, I want to land this one 53 yards, but I have to use a pitching wedge.
Yeah.
Or, you know, so that I have complete feel of how far each of my different clubs go. Because I would say like the hardest thing would be, okay, like have your 9-iron and land it like 50 yards, right? So let's say if I'm going towards the 50, like landing it that distance. So it was just over, right? But
yeah.
I'm trying to like have full control over all of the clubs so that if there's a time where I have a tree or a bunker or whatever various obstacles there might be on the golf course, I'm able to actually pick a club that I want to pick, not, oh, well, I've never played that shot before, I don't know how that's going to end up kind of thing. So, yeah.
Move on to some iron shots now, if that's okay?
Yeah.
7?
Yeah.
So again, just in terms of your stock shot really with your 7-iron, is there anything you look for, again, like you said with your wedges, what's the feel you're kind of looking to create?
Interaction with the turf is really important. So your ability to like cover the shots, obviously with it being windy as well, that's huge.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the interaction with the turf is going to dictate like sort of the spin that you're creating. So I'm trying to limit sort of the spin that I'm hitting when I'm playing links courses, just because any sort of like tiny bit of side spin, if there's a left to right wind like this, will just throw the ball, you know, kind of sideways. So trying to be pretty neutral with sort of like divot patterns as well. So yeah. Obviously a little bit of wind off that left side there. So.
Do you normally like to see the ball move left to right, right to left, or?
I don't really have a preference. I think, you know, when you've got a wind like this off the right, having the ability to hit a little draw into it so that you don't have to aim, you know, too far left is quite important.
Mm-hmm. When you're switching potentially between those kind of two shapes there, do you change anything in your setup, or is it more of a different feel in your swing that you look for?
For me, the easiest thing to do is, if that's my target line where the stick is, I will point the face at the target, and then I will close off my body slightly to that target, meaning my hips and my feet and my shoulders are pointing right, and my club face is pointing at the target line.
Held against the wind there. If we take this to the extremes then, and let's say when you're out on the course you're blocked out by a tree or something, and you need to hit kind of an extreme hook or a slice, are you then similar, just more open or closed of the stance?
You really would have to close the face down, so it'd almost be shut of the target, like left of the target. Really closing things down and sort of like covering the ball as much as I can. So you're really emphasizing that sort of shape. It's a lot easier to get it working hard that way than it is necessarily working left to right, but equally both as important, for sure.
Perfect. We've kind of talked about there moving left and right. What about high and low? What do you kind of look for, particularly this week? I imagine you're going to need to hit a lot of low ones.
So more low than high, I think, this week. For me, I keep it pretty simple. When it comes to hitting it lower, I'll put the ball position back in the stance. I'll make sure that my sternum is in front of the golf ball. I'll stand usually a tiny bit open just to help aid the hips turning through. I'll make sure the hands are in front of the ball, and then I'm just staying very still over it.
Very nice.
So yeah.
What about that high one? I imagine you probably use this more when you go across to the States.
Yeah, not too many high winds here, although downwind can be helpful. Yeah. If it's straight down. Slightly forward in the stance. And yeah, just kind of staying a little bit more tall on this one as opposed to the lower shot, but not really changing too much, opening the face slightly. Yeah.
Mega. We'll go on to driver then.
Okay.
New Titleist GT in the bag for you. Obviously distance super important on tour. What's your kind of keys to hitting driver and kind of gaining some distance?
I think having the feeling of like, this is going to sound a little odd, but having the feeling like you're hitting sort of like an uppercut is like probably the most effective way to talk about it. So loading into that right hand side and then imagining you were like stepping in to like punch someone. Not that I'm a violent person, but it's just a feeling. Another one is kind of like, for any tennis players, anyone play tennis? No?
Nope.
All golfers, okay.
I like it.
But stepping in and hitting like a forehand cross court, like, you know, shot, just creating that sort of like quick, powerful explosion. So, yeah. So that one's useful this week.
Do you change much in your setup coming into this week with driver as well, just to keep that ball slightly lower?
Yeah, definitely put it a little back in the stance more than I would do usually, but not too much with the swing.
Yeah.
Just more with the setup. A little higher with that one for the downwind ones.
We've talked kind of a lot about spin, control. You've played Pro V1X at the moment. What made you kind of go into that golf ball? What put you into that? Was it?
I think obviously there's a lot of factors. You know, ball speed, like swing speed, sort of your attack angle, all of those things play an important role when it comes to picking the right ball to match the clubs that you play with. And you know, I love it around the greens. I think it's great for short game, and yeah, I mean I've been using the X for quite a while.
When it's not going well and it is frustrating when you're out in the course, how do you manage that internally?
I think identifying when that's happened is key, you know. Obviously, you always fight until the end, but you know, there might be weeks where you're like, well, I know I'm so far off from where the leaders are at, or you know, I'm going to miss a cut, and it's actually those moments there that are really important, because if you can then say to yourself, well, okay, let's see what I can do in the next 4, 5, 6 holes in order to be able to prepare for next week, and see what sort of like learning experience that I can have over those holes. You know, I've had times before where I've done that and then nearly like made the cut, you know, because you just free yourself up. You're willing to, you know, kind of take it on the chin and go, you know, I'm not having the best time. I might have had a bit of bad luck, but I still can learn from this. And I would say that that's really, you know, the only thing you can do. If you beat yourself up out there, you know, the golf course is going to do that for you. So if you're also doing that to yourself, then you're not really giving yourself, you know, sort of a fair chance at kind of being successful. So, yeah.
What was your junior golf experience? Where were you playing when you were a junior?
So I grew up in South Manchester, so I played for Cheshire. I was lucky to be surrounded by a lot of girls that really wanted to sort of, you know, boost you, and you know, we all were very supportive of each other, and I was the only girl member at my local golf club, and I was very lucky that the boys who were members there kind of, you know, took me under their wing, and they included me in everything. And I think, you know, what the golf unions are doing now in the UK is incredible. You know, you're seeing the effects now, you know, of the sort of programs that they've implemented over the last, you know, 5 to 10 years. And I think that it's going to be, you know, an exciting time for UK golf.